I respectfully acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the world's oldest educators and the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was recorded, Darkin Jung Country, surrounded by the beautiful Booty National Park, Brisbane Water and Putty Beach. The land we learn, teach, play and walk upon always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Teaching is one of the most rewarding vocations, yet great teachers are burning out and leaving the classroom in record numbers. Welcome to the PDHPE and CAFS podcast with your host, Kel Bell. This podcast empowers busy New South Wales teachers of PDHPE, CAFS and HMS to teach with confidence, clarity and ease. I understand the challenges of teaching because I've lived them. With more than 2 decades in education, I've journeyed from classroom teacher to becoming New South Wales' trusted voice in PDHPE, community and family studies and health and movement science. Together with leading experts and teachers just like you, we're here to help you reclaim your afternoons, weekends and holidays through practical resources, supportive memberships and powerful professional learning. Ready to reclaim your time? Access your classroom-ready PDHPE, CAFS and HMS tools at thelearnnet.com/tools. So grab a cup of tea or coffee and let's chat about creating impact in your classroom without burning out in the process. Hello, a huge welcome back to another very, very busy term. I know that Term 2 is often one of those terms that causes a little bit of angst, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress amongst teachers in New South Wales. And I really think it's because we jam pack so much into such a busy term. Parent-teacher night, reports, we probably have athletics, cross-country, subject selections. It is a lot and I'm not really sure why we have decided to put everything into Term 2. It's a lot. And I think the pressure that teachers feel during this term often mounts probably towards, about week 6 or 7. The other issue is that a lot of high school teachers also jam pack all of their assessments at the back end of the term. That is a totally different conversation that we can have later on. I have lots to share about that and lots of things that I've tried and our members across New South Wales in PDHPE, CAFS and HMS have been trialing with assessment. But anyway, today is not about that. I hope you had a really great break. This was a really lovely break. I love autumn. Summer's my favorite, hands down by far. I'm very much a summer person, but autumn just has that different, type of weather. It's a bit cooler in the morning and the evenings, but through the day it is beautiful. And we definitely did have a beautiful autumn break. We went down to Jervis Bay for a few days with family, with the girls. They brought their friends. We went to Jamberoo and it was very interesting watching me on water slides. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to water slides, and I was squealing like a little baby as we were coming down the water slides at Jamberoo. But anyway, it was fun. We had a really great time together as a family camping. Green Patch is such a magic spot. If you ever get the opportunity to travel down the south coast, it is beautiful. We always travel up the coast to, mid-north coast, usually at Foster. But look, Green Patch was just amazing. Today I thought I would jump onto our podcast and share with you some things that I've been really thinking about as we enter Term 2. As we enter kind of like the bit of a nuts and bolts term, especially as a stage 6 teacher here in New South Wales. As a busy community family studies and a health and movement science teacher, it is often in Term 2 where you really need to kind of, go full steam ahead. We have trials lurking next term, and I know some schools have been doing trials a bit earlier. At the back end of Term 2. So there's so much happening for schools in New South Wales. But if you are a senior teacher of CAFS and health and movement science, this episode is going to provide you with lots of great strategies that you can implement into your classroom this term to make a really big difference with your kids. These things have stemmed from working with teachers over the last 15 years in stage 6, CAFS, PDHPE, and now health and movement science. Observations I've had as a HSC marker, observations I've had as a leader in New South Wales, and also developing professional learning and delivering it. And I know, and we all know, that teachers deserve an absolute medal for what we do. I'm no longer a classroom teacher. If you're not sure, I don't work in a classroom anymore. I get to support thousands of teachers across New South Wales in K to 6 PDHPE, 7 to 10 PE, CAFS, HMS. I feel very blessed and I do not take that role lightly at all. I absolutely love it. But I remember it like it was yesterday working in the classroom. Working as a teacher, trying to do 1,000 things, juggling all the things, all the balls in the air, that often I think as probably the first 10 years of my teaching career, I spent time on things that didn't make a difference. I'm going to say that out loud. I spent time, precious time, my weekends, my afternoons, my holidays on things that did not matter in my classroom. Didn't matter one little bit. And from speaking with lots of teachers in New South Wales, I can guarantee that there are members, that there are teachers who are still focusing on things that do not matter, that do not make a difference in their classroom. So we know that teachers are not short on effort. A lot of teachers work very hard, tireless, working so much and so hard that it often comes to the holidays that you're like, oh, thank God that was a bloody massive term. Kind of, collapse on the lounge or on the bed or on the beach. That's me, and go, wow, that was such a busy term. Because we've worked so hard, we care, teachers care. Teachers care so much, but often it is at the detriment to their health, their well-being, their energy. And look, I think, to be honest, there are things that teachers are still doing in New South Wales schools that do not make an impact on their kids. And that's pretty sad. And that's not from a lack of knowing or a lack of trying or a lack of, not doing the job properly. It's just a lack of awareness of what actually makes an impact on our kids. Now, I can rattle off thousands of studies around the world, around Australia, big researchers' names. I love that stuff. I know not everyone does. I could talk about formative assessment till the cows come home. I've written a book about formative assessment, never published it. I love the work of Dylan Williams, Shirley Clark, John Hattie, Grant Wiggins, all of these researchers, all of these educators, and they are all ex-teachers, have shared with us key studies about what works in actual classrooms. Now, if you haven't come across the work of John Hattie, he talks a lot about clarity and effectiveness in classrooms, as well as feedback. And feedback is like, I will do a whole podcast about feedback. Again, that's one of my loves. So I will do a podcast about feedback for stage 6. But John Hattie talks about a lot of these effect sizes. So I'm not a walking, talking, Google, so I'll have to read these out to you. But, John Hattie's work, they did lots of meta-analysis, analysed millions of kids, and strategies that made the biggest difference are teacher clarity, feedback, and explicit teaching. Interesting that the Department of Education is now focusing on that, but I'm sure we should have been focusing on it for a long time. These sit well above the 0.4 benchmark for a year's worth of growth, with teacher clarity, so teachers like knowing what they're doing, around 0.75. Feedback around 0.70, and explicit teaching around 0.59. We know that class sizes don't always make an impact. We know that project-based learning has a really big impact, but not the profound impact that those three things do. And that's where the disconnection sits, I think. We spend so much time either creating resources or getting the kids to summarize textbooks or writing notes on the board, off the board, but then we don't look at what actually makes an impact on our students. And I'd love to share with you today, for CAFS and HMS, what is working in New South Wales schools, but also what works in terms of improving student performance. It's not writing more notes. It's not writing and, getting notes from the board and then copying it and then doing, role plays or watching a documentary or going to an excursion. None of that is making the impact that you think it's making. Rewriting your resources in the holidays isn't making an impact. Creating Google Slides from scratch, spending all that time on that isn't making the difference that it needs to with your HSC students. What is making a difference in the schools that I have been speaking with, the teachers that I've been chatting with, our members, and also what I observe for a very long time, as a presenter, as a HSC marker, are making our teaching come to life. That's where the edge is. It's the actual art of teaching making a difference. And I know that is like, completely a basic thing. But for us to continue in the job that we have signed up for, we really need to go back to basics and think about who is in front of us. Making our education, our learning so engaging and interesting and meaningful makes such an impact on our students. It's the art of teaching. It's the love of learning in our classroom that actually makes a difference with our kids. And yes, the feedback is really important. I will kind of share that. It's the feedback that goes with that. But to teach the concept, that has to be explicit. And the Department of Education have hit the nail on the head to make explicit teaching their focus. A little while ago, it was formative assessment, and a lot of schools in New South Wales are like, I've never heard this before. But it was like 15, 20, 30 years old. People just have a lack of awareness. Teachers don't read journal articles. Teachers don't read, not all of them. A lot of teachers don't have the time to read research papers. And so when these things kind of come to fruition from the department or from the independent system or from the Catholic system or from teachers loving learning and doing their own investigation, you realize it's kind of going back to basics. And it's the art of teaching that has the biggest impact in your class, in your classroom with your students. And I know as soon as I made that shift away from chalk and talk, death by PowerPoint back then, writing notes, or just simply discussion. I did a lot of discussion with my kids, lots of discussion. We discussed till the cows come home, but it's really going back to the art of teaching. And that's really what I miss. Like, I miss getting up in front of the class and sharing my passion with the kids, sharing my absolute deep commitment to our courses and to their learning. Like, that stuff is where the magic lies. And as soon as I made that tweak in my own classroom, our HSC results completely skyrocketed. And some of the key things that I've shared with teachers over the last 6 years in the Learning Network, and then obviously before that, before I left the classroom, is that love of teaching and learning. And that's what I really miss the most. I also miss the feedback that I used to be able to give to my kids. Anyway, we can have a whole podcast episode about feedback later on. What I think is happening in New South Wales schools is that teachers are becoming so I think just so overwhelmed with not just the content, but also all the other stuff that goes with it, all the admin, all the making sure that I'm, using that plan or using those strategies that we're meant to be using from the department or from the independent system. We're forgetting about the actual art of teaching, hooking the kids in, explicit teaching and learning, that application of the content, then making sure the kids are actually understanding what you've just taught them for 3 lessons or 1 lesson or 5 lessons or 2 weeks. That checking for understanding through formative assessment, those exam prep questions that you can do every single lesson. And if you're telling me that you're not going to have time to do it or that you haven't made it a priority, you need to. I can say hand on heart, I reckon 90% of my lessons, we did some sort of exam prep with my CAFs and my stage 6 PDHPE classes. So we can do it in our CAFs and HMS classes. We need to make it a priority. Our kids need to keep practicing their writing, their explicit writing for that end game, which is the HSC. And look, again, this isn't all about just HSC results. It's about that transfer of learning. But if we're getting the kids to write copious notes from the board, death by PowerPoint, or if we're reinventing the wheel, making our own booklets and not actually accessing things that are already out there, already done for us, then we're doing a massive disservice to our kids, but also ourselves. If you're spending so much time on that prep and planning in the background, you're focusing on the things that don't matter. Your delivery in the classroom with the kids is what matters. Bringing it to life is the biggest thing that you can do with your kids to help them learn and understand. So I want to give you some practical strategies because this is all pie in the sky, Kel. This is my welcome to my TED Talk. I want to give you some real practical strategies because reading the textbook doesn't cut it. Writing notes from the board doesn't cut it. Rewriting from notes doesn't cut it. What really makes an impact with our kids is bringing the course to life through practical teaching and learning activities. That is the absolute goal. That is like my zone of genius. That is where like the biggest impact is. And it doesn't have to be all bells and whistles. Some of the most impactful lessons that I think I had with my senior kids is when we we had a really great hook. We had like a visual as we came into the class. We had a really great, I taught the content. We then applied it through like a practical, tangible, hands-on teaching and learning strategy. And then we actually discussed what we were learning. We got the kids to do some exam writing, gave feedback, all that sort of stuff. So let's go to CAFS first of all, Community and Family Studies, 22 years this year, my friend. I've seen everything. I've seen teachers still watch Happy Feet with their class. I've seen teachers watch Castaway. That was me. I did that for probably about 5 or 6 years until I did HSC marking, until I realized that the kids don't need more content. The kids don't need to watch the whole documentary that you're giving them. Getting back to the core, stripping it right back and going, what am I actually teaching my kids today that is going to impact on their life and their HSC? We still have a HSC. And that's where I it's a bit hard. Like I'm tossing around both, like quality teaching, but also preparing them for the HSC. I really think that if you focused on your teaching and learning, the kids, there will be a direct correlation with their results. So let's go to CAFS. So year 11, this is unscripted. I don't have any plans for this. So let's go something like well-being and maybe resources. The kids could do like a resource audit in their house. This is completely off the cuff, by the way. They could do a resource audit in their house. They could talk about human and non-human resources that maybe their family have at their disposal. Obviously human resource like their knowledge, understanding, skills, capabilities, etc. And then resources in their home that they have access to. So they might do an audit of that. They might then look at the impact that has on their physical, emotional, social well-being, etc. You're bringing the course to life. You're getting the kids to think about experiences in their own life, in their own world that they can connect with. But it's not just that. We need to get them to think about it in another context. That transfer of learning has to happen. So we might then do that for a homeless person. We might then do that for a parent, a new parent, an aging parent, or a carer. So getting the kids to think about, okay, I've learned this, well-being, needs, resources. How can I then transfer my learning to a practical scenario, a case study that I've got my content, like my ideas, and then I'm transferring it to an actual example, bring it to life. So what I might do in my class is I might get them to watch a very small snippet of a YouTube clip, maybe something about homeless people in Australia. I might find something reputable like Mission Australia, have some amazing clips, watch it. That might be the start of my lesson. No context. The kids just walk in, say good morning, good afternoon, whatever. I will do the roles secretly. I'm not going to get the kids to go here, 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 here. You just do the role. You know your kids. You should know your kids. You do the role. Don't waste time. Get straight to it. Have the clip playing. Have a quote maybe on the board, then the YouTube clip, whatever it is. So you're hooking the kids in an instant, like you're hooking them into your lesson. There's no context to like start to create that curiosity. What's this about? What are we doing today? Like you're kind of going down that path. You would then do some explicit teaching and learning. You would say that, well-being is this concept. It is about the balance between your physical, emotional, social, spiritual, economic, blah, blah, blah. Do the spiel. You can have, well-being and ill-being, all that sort of stuff. There are 6 factors that affect an individual's well-being. And then you'd kind of teach that explicitly. Then what I'd be doing is practical teaching and learning strategies about well-being itself and how those concepts are interrelated. Again, that's a concept that a lot of teachers don't teach. They think they're all like, this is the physical, this is the emotional. But the secret is looking at the impact of an individual's physical well-being and emotional well-being, social well-being, emotional well-being, if you catch my drift. That's where the key is, especially for HSC in Part C. Anyway, you'd be then getting maybe a series of scenarios. It could be either a visual representation, like a photo of a homeless person, a family, a young person, a carer, whatever it is. And then they might need to look at that and go, okay, well, what's their well-being like? What resources do they need access to? What's their satisfaction of needs? All those sorts of things. Getting them to do like a table. I'm big on tables. If you remember, you'll know why. You've seen the tables that we create. It's a really great way to structure understanding, get the kids to apply their knowledge. I actually had a CAFS teacher email me maybe about 4 weeks ago saying, where are all the answers for your booklets? And I was like, well, we don't have the answers for the booklets. I can help you understand it, but there are so many answers. It's not Blackline Masters back in the 90s and the early 2000s. I don't want to give people everything because there are so many things that encompass our content that I can guide people 100%. If any of our teachers have bought resources or any of our members want clarity, I will walk through that with people. But I'm not going to give it to people on a silver platter of what the answers are because there are multiple answers. I want teachers really to be able to also engage with resources and be able to use them in the classroom. And I haven't got the answers. I would have to sit down and write them out, some of the answers, but my answers would be different from one day to the next. So it's really about bringing the course to life through practical teaching and learning strategies. So tables are a big one that I love. It could be like matching cards. It could be getting, 4 different case studies around the room. All this takes time. I get that. But isn't that better than rewriting or typing out notes from the textbook or getting the kids to, do death by PowerPoint on the board? Bringing the course to life through practical teaching and learning strategies is the best thing that you can do with your students, to bring it to life, to make the kids know it, understand it, and apply it. So that's a very basic CAFS example. Let's go another CAFS example. Let's go term 2, and I encourage our members to teach families and communities second. Individuals and groups, that's very short. There's not much not much connection from year 11 to year 12. So it's very short. It's very basic. It's about power, conflict resolution, decision making, all things that we already do with our 7 to 10 kids. So I just say to people, you've got less time term 3, do it then. So let's go families and communities. I will go maybe something to do with socialization or stages of the lifespan. I don't know. I would get the kids to maybe watch one of the Life At series. So it's like a case study. Again, it connects to the course. It's a case study that researchers did from 0 to I think up to 14. Don't quote me on that. Can't remember what they're up to. It's kids development. And you get to observe how the kids are socializing, how the kids are developing over time. So you might get, that could be your hook. You watch a very small snippet of the clip, or you might get the kids to bring some photos in of them when they were kids. Spark that conversation of their development, their socialization. Obviously teach what socialization is. Find some research papers because that's what the kids need to do. They need to look at a literature review for that. And then you'd kind of be, doing practical teaching and learning strategies around that. You might have different scenarios or photos of different kids' development. Whatever it is, you're tangible. The kids can touch it. They can feel it. They can watch it. They can move around the classroom. They're not just sitting there for an hour being bored out of their brain. So there's some very simple practical teaching and learning strategies for CAFS. I have so many more. Do not worry. 22 years, I've been teaching it for a long time. That is just very small, very, very small snippet. But it is about thinking outside the box and going, okay, well, how can I bring this to life? I need to teach the content explicitly, but I then also have to bring it to life. I have to get my kids to apply their knowledge, understanding, and skills. Okay, health and movement science. Let's go a more health example, and let's go more exercise science example. Let's go physiological adaptations. Let's go training principles. So at the moment, if you haven't seen on social media, I'm training for a marathon. And if there is no better way to apply our course of HMS through an actual practical experiment, an actual practical experience is for me at the moment training for a marathon. You're going to laugh at this, I really thought that I could train a little bit and be okay to run. Well, I haven't ran really for about 8 years. I used to run in Sydney, 40 kilometers a day. We lived in front of the M7 walkway, so I'd just run. Mostly 5K, 6K a day. I would have a big run on a Sunday, 10Ks would probably be about the max. I've done 5 half marathons. I really thought that I would be okay doing my training. My calves in the first 2 months or 3 months, I don't know, were absolutely burning. I couldn't go past about 2 or 3 Ks without stopping, without going, I can't keep doing this. I am like feeling like done. I can't keep running. So my training the first 3 months was terrible. Fast track to now, I ran 20 Ks on Friday. So that is like an absolute feat. I think it's like a milestone. But then, you know what? I've reverted back. This morning I went for a run. It was quite hilly and I couldn't really run past about 3.5 Ks. I don't know why. I think fuel, I was running up hills, I'm getting my periods, too much information, but it's all those things that kind of have impacted on my training. So we can talk about actually bringing the course to life through a practical experience. So I would obviously share these with my kids. I would even potentially get my kids together to sign up for the City to Surf. I would love that. I haven't shared with that with anyone. I think we did it a couple of times when I taught stage 6, and I taught it a couple of times before I moved up the coast, and then I had a lot more classes. But I think we did do City to Surf training, and we could kind of then see, okay, well, that reversibility. We could then experience what it was like with our training thresholds, energy systems, nutrition, training programs, and now like periodization. So really thinking about what you can do with your kids to bring the course to life through health and movement science is a great way for the kids to actually feel it in themselves, feel it in their body. And now, if you have kids who aren't particularly loving moving, that's going to be a barrier. But think about what is an area of the course that you could potentially bring to life. Like it could be, stuff on training principles. It could be even learning a skill. I know that's an old school one, doing juggling. Maybe choose something different so it's a bit different for the kids. But that's that's been around for ages. We did that at uni, 20 something years ago. And I know a lot of our colleagues before that did those experiments. Learning a new skill, going through the stages of skill acquisition. That could be something. They might need to co-write their, amateur sport coaching program for the year with their coach. I don't know, like think outside the box and think about how can I bring our health and movement science course to life through practical teaching and learning strategies. Now, if you are wanting to go on an excursion with the kids, that's great. That's a really great opportunity for the course to be brought to life. It doesn't have to cost hundreds of dollars though. You could go down to the local gym. You could go down to, a local physio could come to you. Think outside the box about how you can really bring the course to life through practical teaching and learning strategies. For more the health side of things, you could look at, digital health through them, through Medicare, through how they access technology. You could look at young people's health. You could get them to look at, for their own parents and then other generations, what their health was like and how it's different to the young people's health of today. So there's things that you can really get the kids to do in both like focus area 1 and focus area 2 type content for health and movement science. It's about really thinking outside the box, and it's about going back to the core, the art of teaching. If you have read the book, Ditch the Textbook, it is phenomenal. It's a really great resource, and it's a bit of a wake-up call even now to go, let's stop focusing on the textbook. And I'm a textbook author. I know that. We have resources out there for teachers. But what we do differently is we get the kids to bring the course to life. That's where the secret is. Like that's the magic ingredient to a really great, successful classroom. It's bringing the course to life through practical teaching and learning strategies. So I could be here for like the next 2 days talking about this. We have so many resources that are out there to help you. So if you're looking for like booklets, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, Google Slides, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, flashcards, revision cards, exams, they are all available for our teachers. CAFs, HMS, PDHP are coming. Look, they are there for you to save your time. Like, stop spending your time on doing that and focus on your kids. Focus on the people in front of you, the young people in front of you, and giving them feedback on what they're doing. Or look at ways that you can improve your practice, improve your teaching and learning. And obviously, I've spoken a lot about our memberships. They are absolute gold to support you as a busy teacher, to help you stay in our profession. Change is hard. Like, it is stressful. There are multiple times in my career that I have gone through burnout because of either changes or just like being completely done and overwhelmed and stressed because I thought I had to do it all. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. You do not need to create every single resource that you're ever going to teach your kids. Our memberships have the resources that you're actually writing. Our memberships give you the strategies, give you the ideas, so you just get to work on your magic with the kids and you get to build relationships with them and give them effective feedback to move them forward. I don't know, like, it's an absolute no-brainer for teachers and schools to join our memberships. CAFS, HMS, 7 to 10 PDHPE, K to 6 PDHPE. We want you to stay in our profession. You are a valuable member of our teaching community. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to do it all. And look, I can say this hand on heart because I have been there and done that. I'm at the other end though. Like, I left because I thought I couldn't stay. If I know now what I knew, I should have implemented things back then to stay, but I didn't. I made the decision to leave. I can't go back. Well, I can. I still have my teaching number. I still have my accreditation. But what we are doing to help you is going to be a career changer and a lifesaver. So, look, please let us know. If you want any ideas, any resources, you're stuck, you have a really interesting class that you're just really finding it hard to get motivated, please let us know. If you're looking for practical resources, obviously our resource booklets, they're like a bit of a stepping stone to see how we work, all that sort of stuff. You can access those at thelearnnet.com/resources. They are easy, downloadable PDFs, printable, colorful, easy to use. And of course, our memberships are here to support you to reclaim all those precious hours that you ordinarily spend on scope and sequences, programs, assessments, units of work, resources, ideas, plus the support and professional learning that you deserve as a busy New South Wales teacher. If you're listening live, we still have tickets available to our K to 10 PDHP forum next week, Thursday, Friday. I cannot wait to see everyone in person. It's been a while. We haven't seen people since October in person at the CAFS conference, but we can't wait to see you at the K to 10 PDHP forum. Please let us know if you have any questions about today. And also, please comment if you are on Spotify. We've had a couple of comments. I'd love to see a bit more of those. Ask questions. Tell me what your favorite strategies, so we can share it with our community. But thanks again for being here. I will see you guys next week on PDHP and CAFS podcast. Take care. This episode was brought to you by the K to 6 primary and 7 to 10 PDHP memberships, the CAFS Collective, and the Health and Movement Science membership. Our community is designed to support and empower busy teachers like you. Explore them along with a suite of helpful teaching tools at thelearnnet.com. If you've loved today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share with a colleague, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at kellybell.coach. I love seeing what resonates with you. Make sure you subscribe to Apple Podcasts or Spotify to stay connected. And if you took even one thing away from today's chat, I'd be so grateful if you could please leave us a review. See you next week. Here's to finally reclaiming your time as a busy New South Wales teacher.